Welcome. Hello. This is a webinar on how to find killer app ideas, or the world has enough to-do lists. Seriously, there's enough to-do apps out there. You don't need any more, and no one's going to be impressed by them. So just forget it. Let's do something else. Now, you may well be a software developer or a software engineer, and you're in a position of saying, "Do you know what? I want to build and launch an app," and that's a great decision to make. Now, you might be doing it for two reasons, and these are the two reasons I see the most from my clients, is that you are doing something so that you can stand out with your resume, with your CV, with your portfolio, or you're doing it to monetize, that you want to bring more income in. And those are two very good reasons to do these things. But this leads to the same question over and over again that I get from my clients quite a lot, which is, but what do I build? What I often hear that what their thoughts are at the moment is, well, a to-do list and a meal planner and a weather app and a flashcard app and all the other boring crap. Nobody cares about this stuff. Users won't care about it, and guess what? Recruiters won't care about it either. It generally is a bit of a dud, and just don't do it. So what this talk really is about is how to build cool stuff. That's really it. How to build cool stuff and be able to kind of get users in. And who am I? Who am I to have that opinion? I am Dom. I started a company called Chuffed Coaching, and I work with startups to help them get off the ground, find their footing, get into a place where they can launch their product, get users in, all of that stuff. I'm also a head of product at another startup at the same time, and I bring knowledge in product and operations and engineering and all manners of places from over a decade in tech and a history of working with unicorns as well. Now, if you're a person who is a software developer or engineer and you're sat there thinking, man, if I just had an idea, then I could build something, and you're struggling and you're sort of beating yourself up maybe a little bit about it, I can tell you exactly what the problem is. We think of ideas as a spark of inspiration, an instantaneous moment, the eureka of what it is. Hey, this is it. This is the thing I should build. We use the light bulb as a symbol of that. But what happens? That moment never comes. And what's a shame is that people sometimes internalize that. They say, well, other people have ideas, but I don't have any ideas. It must be something wrong with me. It must be that I'm just not the right person. But that's the thing. It's got nothing to do with an instantaneous moment at all. And that the light bulb is probably not the best symbol for an idea. Maybe we should go with a flower. Because plants only bloom flowers when it has the right sunlight, when it has the right amount of water, when the soil has the right nutrients, when the temperature or the humidity is at the right levels. Only then does it send the flower out. The conditions have to be right. And this is truly where app ideas come from. You need to be in a position where you are looking in the right places and at the right times. You need to be talking to the right people. You need to learn about the right pain points and find the right pain point, the right problems to solve. You need to learn about the right pain points and find the right problems to solve. And you need to capitalize on the right opportunities. These are the conditions where good ideas come from. Now, I could sit here and talk about product and talk about business and talk about market analysis and all the other boring stuff. I'm not going to do that in 20 minutes. It's not going to happen. But over the last decade, I have managed to put together some tips. And here are a few. 7 tips to finding killer app ideas. I'm just going to have a swig of water. Right. Finding killer app ideas. Tip number 1, scratch your own itch. There is a trap here, which is you say, right, I need a something app, so I'm going to build the something app. But what happens is that you might start off with, well, I need to track my workouts. Well, while I'm at it, I might as well release a feature to track my calories. While I'm at that, I might as well build another feature to track my macros. And it goes on and on and on. And then the scope builds and builds and builds. And I've had people come to me to say, I am paralyzed by the decision of where do I start? Once I strip away all that stuff, they immediately get going. So to avoid this trap, this is what you need to do. When you feel some friction, write it down. You should have a note in your notes app that just has friction points. And the way you want to structure this is to say, well, where am I starting? Where do I want to get to? And what is the roadblock in my place? So for example, I might create a long form piece of content, but I need to grow my social media with short form content. What is the roadblock? What's the friction? I just don't like sitting there scrubbing through the whole content and the entire timeline trying to find these 1 minute bite-sized things. So what I'm looking to build just needs to be long form in, short form out, fewer clicks as possible. That's it. Don't worry about subtitles. Don't worry about color correction. Don't worry about fancy graphics. Just do that and go with it. And this will help you get to a point where you can start to ideate. When you write those things down, what is my state A? How do I get to state B? How do I change state? And what is the friction of that state? Then you'll get to a point of saying, okay, well, I can sit with this for a period of time, and then you can go for a walk, go for a swim, go for a hike, whatever it is, it will suddenly come to you. Trust me on that one. How to find killer app ideas. Number 2, product misuse. If you find a product that's being used in a way that it wasn't designed to be used, that is a flag to say pay attention to that. Because it might be a case that there is no solution available to them, so they're just using what's at hand, but it also tells you that the problem is urgent enough and important enough to do it that way. It might be a case that there are current solutions, but they're currently inaccessible. For example, enterprise software will build for specific teams. This, Salesforce is for sales teams, but there is no form of that for a small business. They have no access to it because they are just a founder who does sales. And lastly, current solutions might exist, but they may not fit their specific workflow. And this one I see all the time, where it's a case of, oh, you can just go use this thing. Well, the problem is that thing is meant to be part of a workflow of a very structured team that is expected. But my team isn't structured that way. So it just doesn't fit the inputs and outputs that I have. Being able to kind of zone into this and find out, right, well, this person is using, a calendar as a to-do list app, right? That tells you something kind of interesting. A great example of this is somebody noticed that a spreadsheet was being used as a database, and they'd written a bunch of scripts to connect that database to a whole bunch of other services. And when they looked at that, they were like, that's interesting. Why not just have a database and just build a front end to it? They asked that question, and what they got back was people just like the tabular format. They just like writing in the table, and then it goes off and does its thing. So they built an app which was a tabular format of input of data, and it connects to a whole bunch of other stuff. That became Airtable. This is a really good one. If you're looking to kind of go for a micro SaaS, this is a really good space to get into. And I've built a couple of products in this which have done really well by just looking at, well, how do you use things in a way that you're not supposed to use it? How to find killer app ideas. Tip number 3, bad reviews. I was contracted with a client, well, actually a few clients, with this very specific scope of we need to do feature ideation, and my background in product was helping with that. One thing I would do would be to go into an app store or go into maybe a forum and look for bad reviews for products that already exist. This always indicated sort of one of 3 things. Number one, they're good apps, but they're for the wrong people. This one happens a lot. So I saw one the other day, which was an accounting app for small to medium businesses, but like a bunch of solopreneurs turned up to use it and it just wasn't built for them. So they were just complaining about it. It's not that the app was designed wrong. It's just that the wrong people turned up. The reason the wrong people turned up is because there is no option for them. Another reason you get bad reviews is that it solves the wrong type of problem. I also had another client who dropped their price for their product thinking they can get more users in, but what they actually found was their user acquisition went down. And the reason was the problem that they were solving wasn't a money problem. That wasn't the problem. It was a time problem, that people were trying to get from point A to point B in a certain amount of time. But when they saw it was cheaper, they just assumed that it was a slower option, so they didn't adopt it. My advice to them, what they did was actually raise the price a lot higher, and their user acquisition just exploded from there. And lastly, you get bad reviews from the wrong number of features. And I want to tell a personal story on this. I had somebody pitch a product at me, and I said, okay, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And I did a demo and I talked to this guy, and he turned around to me and said, right, the product is worth, so the product costs 120 quid per month. And I was like, what? He said, oh, it's a bit expensive, I know, but there's a lot of features here. And I said, yeah, but this is the problem. I only need one. You're making me pay for 10 features and I'm only going to use one. That's not a good deal for me, and that's an important thing to understand. Value is from the perspective of the customer. So when you're in a position of having too many features, you may charge too high a price, but equally it works the other way around. If you have too few features, then people don't adopt either, and you find that those bad reviews start coming in. But it gives you an opportunity to step in and then say, right, okay, well, if there is no app for this group of people, because the reviews tell us that the wrong people are turning up to this app, if it's a case of this current solution is solving the wrong type of problem, then you can ideate in a space of, well, let's build an app that is the right kind of problem. But also, if an app is doing the wrong number of features, you can actually ideate on top of that and say, well, I think this is the core piece of it, so I'm just going to build this bit of it. A really good space to do ideation. If you're building an app, if you're just building new features, this is also a really good way of doing it. Okay. How to find killer app ideas. Tip number 4. Scraping Reddit. Now, all products solve a problem. And you want to go out and find problems and pain points. And that's the bedrock you want to be able to ideate on top of. But here's an interesting thing. If you go out and ask people, what are your problems, what are your pain points, they're not going to give you a good answer. They don't know what it is themselves. They may not have the ability to articulate it. And therefore, you don't really learn anything. So one technique I love to use is just to get people to have a bit of a rant. Because once they have a moan about something, oh, this thing takes too long, this thing is just so laborious, this thing is really annoying, they're immediately telling you, these are my pain points. And one place people go to have a moan is Reddit. So go to a subreddit that represents your ideal customer profile or your persona or archetype or whatever you want to call it, whoever you're building for. Find a subreddit that represents those people, scrape all of the posts out of it. You may want to scrape the comments as well. Format that into a markdown file. And then upload that to Google's Notebook LM. I find this works the best. Once you've uploaded that, you can then start prompting it for pain points. You can say, hey, what is it people are trying to do? What stands in their way? What's their friction? Once you start getting responses back, this then gives you a place to start doing that ideating. And what you want to do is create a whole bunch of pain points and problems that you can just sit there and start to think, well, how can I solve that? How can I solve this? And a lot of times I find something where it's like, do you know what? Just a simple script would fix that. There you go. There's something for you to build. That'd be great for your portfolio. finding killer app ideas. Tip number 5, sheet as a service. This I really kind of came to from building a lot of internal tools for companies. I'd get hired in and say, hey, we need an internal tool. There's an interesting thing with spreadsheets, which is they're very much the original no-code tool, right? You bring in data, you structure that data, you process it. There's some conditional logic. There's some interactivity. And then that data gets turned into a new format, which is your output, which then you can take and go make a decision somewhere else. That's an app. That's what apps do. So you can take a spreadsheet that is commonly used because it's part of a company's workflow. It might be commonly used because a leader in your space provides it as a spreadsheet template. You can take those spreadsheets, work backwards towards the problem, and then ideate forwards again afterwards. And this will enable you to find those places where actually there's a good opportunity to build something here. An example of this was I worked for a team who had an e-commerce platform. And one thing they had was this spreadsheet that was like a checklist for all the things you need to make sure you've done in your e-commerce website. Have you done your social, your OG social meta tags? Have you got your H1s done properly? Is your site loading fast enough? A whole bunch of them. So what I did was to just schedule engineering to build that whole checklist into an API. And then from various points of the product, we can just ping that API and get that data in. This was hugely useful for people to work on. And we actually built a feature around it that became the most used feature in the product. So go away, collect some spreadsheets. They'll let you know the answers. How to find killer app ideas. Tip number 6, freelance websites. As I've been talking, there's been a clear thing of all products solve a problem. And to go with that, services also solve a problem. So if you go and look at, what jobs are people doing right now? What are freelancers getting hired for? This tells you, this type of problem needs to be fixed. Equally, if you see successful freelancers absolutely go gangbusters in things like ghostwriting or content creation or editing or whatever it is, this tells you a good direction to go into because people are looking to solve this problem. And you can look at the tools that the freelancers are using themselves. Why is it that a freelancer is willing to learn and use that tool, but the person who hires them isn't? And it's not a case that you're looking to replace the freelancer. What you're looking for is to be part of the workflow. You don't have to build anything big for that. It might be a case that, if you've got a video editor and people are trying to, people are hiring video editors, they're using a particular piece of software. You might be a case of, here's a subtitling tool or caption tool, right? That's something that works into the workflow, but this gives you a lot of opportunity to find people. And lastly, and most importantly, how to find killer app ideas. Tip number 7, go talk to people. It's the most important one by far. The beauty of going out and talking to people as a means of finding app ideas is, firstly, you get to interrogate where people are and figure out, right, okay, you say that this thing's really, really difficult, but it doesn't seem like it's difficult. And then you start to learn, actually, it's not because it's difficult, it's because they just don't want to do it. You might find that people say that this thing is too expensive, and then you talk to them and you go, actually, it's not that it's too expensive, it's that you just don't value that as much as you think you do. Finding out those things are very, very important when it comes to releasing a product, but it also comes in very important when it comes to ideation. When you kind of get to that point of, I need to find an app idea, understanding what sits right at the heart of a problem is the best place to be in order to find interesting ideas to work on. It also gives you the ability to go to market as well. If you're going out and talk to people, you might as well sort of say, hey, I'm going to build this prototype. Are you interested? I've done that so many times, and more people say yes than you probably think they would. And lastly, iteration is cheap at this point. If you go out and you talk to people and you put a value prop in front of them, you can iterate that value proposition and see what works, see what doesn't work, see what language connects with people, see what words turn people off. Once you get into that space, it really starts to make a lot of sense. And that's everything. 7 tips for finding killer app ideas. Scratch your own itch, product misuse, bad reviews, scrape Reddit, spreadsheet as a service, freelance websites, go out and talk to people. This is a really good way for you to start building a map of the type of problem you want to solve, the type of people you want to build for. And once you start to map that out, you will be able to have much better ideation. And again, set up the right conditions for you to come up with an idea. An idea is more a plant sending out a flower than it is a light bulb coming on. And it's important you understand that, because otherwise you're going to end up blaming yourself, and it's not your fault. Sometimes you're just in the wrong environment, and that's fine. That's me. If you want to reach me, come find me. It's fine. I'll chat to anybody. I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot, but you can also find me over here, but also on Blue Sky, on TikTok as well. And I just talk about, just going, finding ideas, how to go to market, how to find your first 1,000 users, how to work out, well, I've got this idea, will people even use it? I do all of that stuff. So come along, say hi. But I hope that this presentation and this little webinar was useful to somebody. And if so, I would really appreciate you just leave a comment to say, hey, that was really useful. Thank you very much. That'd be great for me, because I want to do more of these, and it will be really good to get some direction on what's going to be useful for you. Okay, let's end the stream there. Thank you for watching.